Hello and welcome back to the American Ultra Stock channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate all of the support recently, helping us reach the 1,100 subs. For us, that's a huge milestone. Really appreciate it. But now back to business right here to a very important video where we're going to be doing a preview analysis of the first friendly we're going to have, the United States against Colombia. You see the two iconic 10s right behind Braden right there. Pulisic and James Rodriguez. And well, first of all, since it's a friendly, Braden, what would you like to see Greg do differently? I mean, he hasn't really tried many things differently. What would you like to see out of friendlies, which are really to test and try new things out?
Yeah, here we go, guys. The best part of the year is here. It's summer, and we're finally done with the season. We finished all of our end-of-year content and we're finally on to the summer, the first USMNT game. I'm so excited for this. But yeah, like you said, it's just tune-up friendlies. So this is the time to experiment and try out any potential things that we could see at some point in the Copa America that we haven't tried before, because these games don't matter at the end of the day. The performances and all the takeaways matter a lot, because this is a preview of what we'll see in the Copa, but ultimately the results don't. If we lose to Colombia and Brazil, but we have some good performances and some positives to take out of it, I'll be fine with that. As long as we perform when it matters the most, when it's a real competition, that's all that matters, really. So I think the main thing I would like to see Greg do differently is let Reyna play the 10, because he has let Reyna play as an 8 occasionally, and he does a pretty decent job because he's such a talented player. But the only time where Reyna really was allowed to play the 10 in a completely free role under Greg was against Ghana, and he scored a brace in the first half. Came off at halftime because his job was done. That was our best result under Greg since he got rehired, by far, really beating up on a Ghana team that had a decent showing in the World Cup. Since then, they've kind of faltered. That was kind of the beginning of the end for them. But that just shows the quality that Reyna had. When BJ was under the helm, he did it a lot. He used the 4-2-3-1 formation with a 10. Even at the Gold Cup, he used it without the A-team players, using Mihailovic, Alan Sonota in that role. But we saw it in the Nations League back in 2023 with BJ. When we played against Mexico and Canada, we saw Gio in that role, specifically against Mexico, and he really shone. So I would love to see that happen again. When Reyna came in for the first time under Greg's rehiring against Mexico in the final, the last camp, he did play. He played more of an 8 role, and he was okay. But I think ultimately I'd like to see him more free-flowing in the attacking role, especially since we know we have the midfielders capable of defending, especially with Tyler Adams back and hopefully fully fit. McKennie has been really working on his defensive duties. There's obviously Johnny, Musa, De La Torre. We're more than capable of having a potential double pivot that is rock solid. So to have Reyna in a free role, kind of like James Rodriguez does for Colombia, I think would really unlock the offense and create a lot more opportunities for us. And then the one other thing that I had down as something I'd like to see Greg do a little differently, and it's not like a knock on Greg really, but it's just because it's a friendly game. We have more subs than usual. I'm assuming it'll be 6 subs. Maybe it'll be even more. I don't know the official rules for the game, but I think the fringe guys, so to speak, the bench players, need to be given valuable minutes. There's several players on this roster that I think need to be given the chance to cement themselves as having a more of a bigger role than you would usually have at Copa. And they have 2 games to do that, here against Colombia and then against Brazil, obviously later. The striker position is a huge question mark. We have 3 strikers. Personally, I'd give them all 60 minutes. I'll get more into that when we talk about the lineup. But then there's other players like Tillman, who's usually stuck behind Reyna. There's Johnny, who's usually stuck behind Adams. Some of our other center backs like CCV and McKenzie, who haven't gotten as much of a run. These types of players need to be given the opportunities because they could be crucial in the Copa America and for our future as well. So those are the 2 main things that I think I would like to see Greg do a little bit differently this camp.
Yeah, and just on one of the things that you said, because people can pinpoint to that Jamaica performance and say that, hey, look at the difference that Gio makes, him and Haji, but Gio was playing as an 8. Against Mexico, Gio was playing as an 8, really. If you look at the way that we shaped up, he was always on the left, almost as a left center mid. Obviously, when he has the ball, he's going to do what he does, and then he thrives. But that sugarcoats a lot of Greg's formation, really, because in actuality, he's not really playing given the 10 role. So I agree with you. I will say one thing. For this friendly specifically against Colombia, I would like to see him start the fringe guys, because I think that the most valuable test and the one that's going to get more hype even for the casual fans, and also I think a better test overall for our squad, would be to go up against Brazil. Even though Brazil has been in a slump in recent history, they are kind of picking it up for this tournament. Dorival is a good manager. Colombia is not really that. They didn't really look all that good the last match they played. They've had a good performances lately. I think they had a great streak, but I think that they're still more vulnerable. I would rather face them than Brazil. So I would actually like to see Greg start Johnny for once. I think that he should have done that last camp, and he should really figure out something different for the center back position and rotate players there. I'd like to see Tillman get some minutes as well, and let the guys obviously sub in the main guys, but more on that on the lineup later. But this is what I want to see. I want to see Greg try a different lineup. Give the guys that are on the fringes a starting role, not just subbing them in. And because even when he was supposed to do that with the Tyler Adams minutes restriction, he didn't really do. So I want to see him do something different with the lineup specifically. Now, we spoke about a bit of a preview on the lineup, on the formation. What do you think he's going to go with, Braden? And what would you like to go with? Let's just go with realism and our ideal right here. Which one would you go for? And what do you think he's going to ultimately choose for the day?
Oh, first of all, I don't think you're trying to discredit Colombia at all, but I mean, they haven't lost a match in over 2 years. I don't think we need to take them as more lightly than Brazil. And I think selfishly, I would love to see Johnny start the game against Brazil, because we know he's a Brazilian American. He grew up there, started his career there. I think it'd be a nice little revenge game of sorts against them. I think it'd really bring the most out of him. So if we're going to give one game to him to start and really have his opportunity, I think it'd rather be against Brazil for his personal reasons and for the team as well. But like you said, the formation, I do think Greg will stick with his 4-3-3, old reliable. I mean, I can't really see a world where he changes in this. I already said I would love to see a 4-2-3-1 tried, and I wouldn't be opposed to necessarily trying a 3-back or a 5-back, whichever way you want to look at it. Not necessarily in this game, but in one of them, because it's something we haven't tried in the past. We have the type of players for it, with Jedi Robinson at the left wing back role and potentially Tim Weah as a right wing back. And especially if Weah is forced to play that role, our winger depth looks a little bit shaky. And when you have a 2-striker formation up top, someone like Haji Wright, who is a striker by trade, but likes to drift out wide, and as a result has been playing a lot of left wing, I think could thrive in that formation. And then you have the likes of Pulisic and Reina, who can slot in at the 10 role or in the midfield, really anywhere. And I think it's something that it's worth a shot, because against bigger teams, maybe having 3 center backs back there is something that could be adjusted. I mean, we've seen in the past 5-10 years of football all around the world, teams are starting to go more to a 3-back system, a 5-back system, and it's become really popular. Yet it's something we've never tried. So it's something that should be experimented with at some point. Whether Greg will do it, I don't think he will. Whether it should be done now, maybe now is not the time, but the time that it was for it, I think, has expired already. So if there's going to be a time to try it, it would be now. But yeah, I think the 4-3-3 is the most realistic option. And now let's get on to the lineups that we'll think he'll put out.
Yeah, because I completely agree with you. So we can just be really brief right here. I don't think he changes. It'll be 4-3-3, and Gio's going to do something well, and people are going to think that he's playing as a 10, because we always see on the little squad lineup day, everyone's filling it out as if it is a 4-2-3-1. It really isn't, but I agree with you. I think it'll be a 4-3-3 in actuality. And on that lineup, who do you think that, but what do you expect to see in terms of, let's just go with the realistic output right here. What do you think Greg is actually going to call up and fill out on that day as the starting 11?
Yeah, like you said, I have only prepared a probable 11, not something that I would like to see, because I don't think it's worth the energy to make these our perfect 11s or whatever, because I think if you've been watching the channel for long enough, you know I have some hot takes in terms of the lineup, particularly in the goalkeeper and the winger positions. But I just decided to go on a probable lineup and then set my subs from there because I do think, especially in these tune-up games, the subs will be really important. There will be players coming off the bench with a point to prove to stake their claim for a bigger role in Copa America. So what I went with as a potential lineup that I think Greg will put out is Matt Turner in goal. Obviously, that spot speaks for itself, at least when Greg's in charge. Jedi at left back, Miles Robinson and Chris Richards at the center back. That seems to be Greg's preferred duo looking ahead for the future. And with Team Shimmerim getting up there in age and potentially, I mean, we don't want him playing 90 minutes every game. So in a just a friendly, I think Greg will go with Miles Robinson, maybe CCV, but probably Miles, more of a younger player. Alongside Richards, of course, he's our de facto best center back. There's no debate about that. And then Joe Scally at right back, I think he will go with. He went with him against Canada. Well, I guess BJ went with him against Canada, but it seemed to work out well. He did a good job in that game. I don't see any reason why he would try something else. I pray to God he does not start Shaq Moore because that would be a disaster. In the midfield, I think we all know it's going to be the three-man workhorse midfield as he likes to use, but with Reyna as one of the eights, so maybe a little bit less of a workhorse in terms of the MMA midfield, but keeping Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie in there. Unfortunately, Musa drops to the bench. There's just no place for him in the team right now, and it's not any fault of his own. It's just a testament to how much talent we now have in that area of the pitch. And then the forward line stays the same. Pulisic, Balogun, Tim Weah. I think it's going to be those. And then for the subs, if this is the potential lineup, and I think it will be, at halftime, I would make 3 changes because, like I said, the subs need to play a crucial role in this game. I would bring on Malik Tillman, Brendan Aronson, and Johnny Cardoso. Johnny for Tyler, straight swap. That one makes sense. Tyler should be on some sort of a minutes restriction anyway, just because we all know the health issues that he's had in the recent months at Bournemouth, and we don't want to rush him in, especially in a meaningless game as it is against Colombia. And I think Johnny deserves his chance. He should have got more minutes in the last camp, but he didn't, and now there's a time to fix that. And then for Malik and Brendan, I think I would bring them on for Gio Reyna and Joe Scally, actually. We kind of saw this happen against Jamaica, Joe Scally coming off at halftime. In that game, Weston McKennie shifted to right back. In this one, I would shift Tim Weah there. I think there's been a lot of clamor from the USMNT fans to try Weah as a right back. And while I don't think he's the ultimate solution there, I think it's worth a shot to give him the chance. If you give him 45, Scally 45, that can kind of decide maybe who starts there for the Brazil game and even going into Copa as our preferred lineup. So I think it's worth a shot to give him the opportunity there, especially since we have the talent like Malik Tillman and Brendan Aronson off the bench to come in, where they can kind of interchange because they're both 10s by trade, but they do also play winger at times. Malik does it for club, Brendan does it for country. So I think if you give them the fluidity to kind of interchange between those two roles, they can really work some magic where they're best on the pitch. And I mean, we've seen it in the past. Malik did so well at PSV in that kind of position, and Brendan off the bench is always a live wire for the USMNT. And when he was given the creativity and the freedom at the 10 in the last month or two at Union Berlin, he really excelled. So I think if you give these 3 players this opportunity off the bench, it's going to be beneficial. And then in around the 60th minute, make the final 3 subs. Like I said, I'm assuming it'll be 6 subs. Maybe it's more and we can give more players opportunities. That would be nice, but I think it's traditionally been 6 in friendlies. So Pepe coming on, like I said, I think we should it's a 180-minute camp realistically. So we should give each of the 3 strikers 60 minutes. Since Pepe is the super sub type guy, both for club and country, we've seen him excel in that role this past season, the past couple of seasons. I think he should play the last 30 minutes of both games, work on tired defenses like he does so well, and try to wreak havoc against them. And then one of the games, truthfully, I don't care which one is which, but Balogun should play 60 in one of them and Sargent 60 in the other. Give them the opportunity to battle it out for the starting 9 spot because Balogun weary, but Sargent wins it on form. So they deserve the opportunity to compete for that spot. And then finally, the last 2, Musa and Haji, they're too talented of players to not be given a proper chance. And we saw what Haji can do off the bench against Jamaica. So I think giving them a solid 30 minutes in this game at the end against tired legs could be really beneficial. And Haji deserves a chance to maybe even stake his claim for a starting spot, because if Weah ended up moving to the right back spot, that opens a winger position. And I think Haji is the perfect candidate to come in and fill that.
Yeah, I agree with you on some of those. I completely agree on giving Weah a time as a right back because I this is just a personal preference. I think that he's the most like for like replacement for Dest. Now, whether that's the way to go or not, I don't really know. I think that it suits Greg Ball, his style to play a little bit better. I think that Scally, people like to say, is just a defensive right back. I think he goes forward okay, but he's not as good defensively as some people say. But on his day, he can be a great right back. But I'll definitely give him. I'll do it actually at halftime. I would sub. I'll put Way there at halftime. Now, I think I'll put Brendan Aronson there just because I think is the perfect super sub. I think that regardless if we're winning or not the game, and yes, the result's not the most important thing, but I think that in terms of confidence, especially since we might face them in the next round, it's important. It's really important to get a good result here. I think that this makes the stakes a little bit higher than a usual friendly. But anyways, it's best to just make sure that we get a good performance there. But I'll put Brendan Aronson in, and I would actually put Josh Sargent in this game as well. I think that with the physicality that they're going to be using in Colombia, I think that it's going to be a tough game. But I think that Pepe would just suit a little bit better than against Brazil. So for that case, I think that subbing in Sargent would be better. Brazil has it's still undecided who's going to be as a starter at the center back position there. They shifted a lot. Dorival even said it that he still doesn't know. So if Pepe is there, I think that he's a better threat in transition. They tend to leave a little bit of gaps that if you look, that's how Brazil has been conceding lately, apart from the last two friendlies. So I think that Pepe can thrive on that on a tired defense. So for this game, I'll put in Sargent, Brendan Aronson, and Haji Wright. Those would be my three main ones. Obviously, then I would sub out about halfway, 60-minute mark. Either sub in Tyler Adams or Johnny, whoever is playing. I'll switch them. I think that Greg's going to start with Tyler, so I'll put in Johnny just so he can get some minutes there. And then for the rest of the match, I'll probably actually switch a center back too. I'd like to see how a center back. I think that it's a position that he seriously needs to consider. I don't think we're as safe as we think we are with Tim Ream starting there. And really, I don't know. We're going to Copa America without really knowing who's going to be the starting partnership. So if he's going to play with Miles, sub him in, give him some minutes. Or if he's not, try Mackenzie even. Because I think at some point, all of our center backs are going to play in this competition. So I think it's valuable to give him minutes there. And that brings us to the final point, which is after this is all said and done, our predictions. If everything goes as you think it will, it doesn't need to be an optimistic one. What's your prediction? What's the scoreline you're calling for this one?
These friendly games are the hardest ones to predict because you use the example of the center back situation for both us and Brazil. We're not playing Brazil yet, but it's the perfect example because none of these teams really know 100% what the starting lineup is going to be, who's going to come off the bench and when. There's a lot of experimentation to be done to decide who's going to play what role in the Copa America. So we don't know who's going to start for Colombia. I'm completely in the dark. I think they'll go mainly first choice, but there'll probably be a few French players brought in to be given their opportunity. There's probably a couple spots up for grabs. So we really don't know how the teams are going to line up against each other until the lineups are officially announced. But if I were to predict it now, I'm going to go for a bit of a high scoring one. I'm going to go for a 3-2 win for the USA. Because I think both attacks are pretty strong, and especially our midfield, I think, is our strongest point. But our attack, with the likes of Christian Pulisic, our best player, and Weah has always performed pretty decent for the national team, and all the three striker options, whichever one's on the pitch. I think we have goals in us, especially if Reina is in a more creative role and is given that freedom to create chances. I think we can score goals, and we know Colombia can score goals. Their attack is definitely the best part of their team. Luis Diaz is an absolute world-class player. He gives every defense he goes up against headaches, and it won't be any different. Going up against Joe Scally, he's going to make him wish he was never called up to this camp by the end of the game. So I'm going to predict a win for the USA just because I think that the goalkeepers are very weak on both sides. So that could potentially be another factor to a high-scoring game. We know Matt Turner is not the strongest goalkeeper right now based on a bad season. And for Colombia, it's a huge question mark as well. They have three goalkeepers in camp. I wouldn't trust any of the three, at least right now. So there's vulnerabilities to be had on both sides. And I think it'll be a very entertaining one for the fans. But ultimately at home, we'll just push it out with a 3-2 win. And I think this game is really going to come down to Gio Reyna versus James Rodriguez, the battle of the tents, as we like to call it. You see the James jersey in my background. I think if these two players are both given the creative freedom that they usually have, even at this age, and let's face it, he's a little bit washed, but James always performs for the Colombian national team. He's integral to their attack. creates all of their chances. And Reina does the same thing for us. I mean, we've spoken about it every camp, it seems, every game. The difference between when Reina's on the pitch and off the pitch, it's night and day. So if they are both at their best and given their absolute freedom to create what they want to create, they're both going to put our attackers and Colombia's attackers in the absolute best situations, leading to more goals. And whoever has a better game, I think, between these two, ultimately that team will win.
Yeah, I'm going for a very similar scoreline. I was really puzzled on what I would choose, but I think 2-2. I think ultimately it's just going to be a draw, and I'm going to say we're probably going to play worse, and we're going to have a better second half than the first one. It's just the way that I think things will go. I think that lately we have been a little bit silent during the first half, and I think that against Colombia they're going to punish us, but I really don't rate Cuesta. Cuesta's going to be playing. I think that if he starts in the center back duo right there for Colombia, or even Mina, I think that both of them are very error prone, so I think that we can pounce on that and definitely score some goals. And both goalkeepers aren't that good, but I think that it'll be a lot more of a cagey game than expected. Hopefully it's free flowing, and if that's the case, I think that we're going to win, but I just don't really trust us to just keep this game scoreless and win 2-0, since I think that we're going to score 2, but as you said, I think their attack's really good, and I don't really trust especially the lack of chemistry that we're going to have there at the back and uncertainty. But hopefully I get proven wrong. I'll definitely be happy about that. But let us know in the comments below what you think, what you thought about the video, any tips or things that you want us to adjust in these prediction videos that we're going to have, previews for matches. There are a lot of matches coming up, so let us know. We'll tailor the content around that. And let us know in the comment right there what you think is going to be the scoreline on this game, your starting lineup, and some of the takes, some of the controversial debates on who starts in which position. Let us know who would be your striker, goalkeeper perhaps. And we'll see you next time. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We'll see you.